Okay, we are right at noon, and let's go ahead and get started. Today we have Donita Hockey, who is going to be speaking to us about vets. She has been the Director of Veterans Employment and Training Services in Kentucky since July 2018. She has been a federal employee for over 16 years, all of which have been proudly served in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Donetta has served as an aviation logistics specialist in the Kentucky Army National Guard for 8.5 years. She is an Operations Enduring Freedom veteran, where she served in Aviation Air Assault Company in Kosovo. Prior to coming to VETS, Donita was a program analyst and project manager for the Department of Interior in Lexington, Kentucky. Donita has a bachelor's from Mid-Continent University in Business Administration and an MBA with a concentration in project management from Trident University. So thank you so much, Donetta, for being here today, and we look forward to hearing what you had to say.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate it. So first off, there's several faces on here that I recognize. Some of our partners are on here. So some of this may not be new information, but if it is, and after we get done, you want to know more about our program, please feel free to reach out to us. We're more than happy to provide assistance or whatever we can help with to promote the hiring of veterans within the Commonwealth. Also on here is Taylor Seahorn, who is the assistant director in my office. He's going to touch a little bit when we get to you, Sarah. And then Jason Hutchinson is on here as well. He is the program coordinator for one of the grants that we operate, and he's going to cover a really, really neat initiative that Kentucky has going on right now as well. Also, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We're going to be monitoring them. I'm more than happy to answer them. And if I don't, I can maybe find the answer for you. So there's no questions so far, I'll go ahead and get started. So as Sarah said, we're the United States Department of Labor Veterans Employment and Training Service. We have an office in Frankfort, Kentucky. Taylor and I are both native to Kentucky. I grew up part of the time in Eastern Kentucky and part of the time in the Lincoln Trail area. So we both know the state pretty well collectively. Taylor was active duty and transitioned off of Fort Campbell. So collectively, we pretty much know the entire state. So that's something we're pretty proud of in our organization. Okay, so today we're going to do more of like a VETS 101. We're going to go over an introduction to the programs and resources that we have within our agency. We've actually, Sarah, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay, let's get that
going. Yes, now I can.
Perfect. Okay. So today we're going to kind of talk about a little bit about the veteran landscape. That's going to be your different demographics and trends. And in VETS, we like to go over our mission by the 4 Ps. And that's going to be the Transition Assistance Program, which is Prepare. We have Provide, which is our partners with the state workforce agencies, and the AJCs, which Kentucky refers to as our Kentucky Career Centers. Protect is what Taylor's going to cover, and that goes over you, Sarah, and Veterans Preference. So if there are employers on here, we are more than happy to provide assistance with that as well. And then we're going to look at Promote, which is the employer outreach and other programs that we have that outreach to veterans. And then we're going to cover Registered Apprenticeship and SkillBridge, and if your company is currently not participating in that, how you can get involved. So I'm going to back up for a second, and I'm going to kind of poll the audience. Dallas, Taylor, and Jason, you're not allowed to answer this. When you think of a veteran, what age group do you think of? Go ahead and put that in the chat, and then we're going to go over some demographics to kind of talk So when you are looking at a veteran that you want to hire within your organization, what age bracket comes to mind? And you can unmute if you prefer to do that. Dallas, you're itching. I can see it. Okay, somebody come off mute and like give me an age range that you think.
18 to 100.
Okay, Naomi, you're unmuted. What did you say? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Any age.
Okay, any age. So when we look at the demographics, when you are picturing a veteran walking into your organization, a lot of businesses tend to think that it's going to be your 18 to 24 range. And in some cases, that is true. But the statistics that we have captured through the Bureau of Labor Statistics show that the average veteran's actually around 65. Those are going to be, they're probably going to come in, but those are going to be your veterans that, again, that's going to be the big bracket that you normally capture whenever you're looking at hiring veterans. When we look at the workforce, there's 9 million veterans in the workforce, and that's collectively throughout the country. It's a huge, huge population. And then throughout the country, there's 200,000 transitioning service members that transition out and become veterans every year. So that's a high population of a labor pool that they're coming out already trained and have valuable skills to offer to employers. It's also known that the veteran population is shrinking. We are currently operating under an all volunteer force right now. And BLS projects that it's going to be a challenge to hire veterans in the future because the population is going down. Okay, unemployment rate. The unemployment rate has actually lowered since February and is currently sitting at 2.8% right now with unemployed veterans. So that means that they work or they have valuable skills to offer to where they are going to keep finding jobs and not be seeking unemployment benefits. Okay, another population. A lot of times, women veterans do not like to identify as veterans. There's been some studies done on this, but it is a smaller population that's basically hidden in plain sight. And here's where we go back to our target range. And I'm going to sit here and let you all look at this just for a few seconds to show really where the demographics are for veterans right now. Is this surprising to anybody that it's not younger? Okay. All right, so when you think of hiring a veteran, somebody help me out in the chat and put what are some benefits to hiring a veteran that you all see as employers or partners? And Taylor, help me out because I can't see the chat right
now. All right, right now we got they show up on time, loyalty, teamwork, leadership, discipline.
Absolutely. And those are all valuable traits that employees should have whenever. So, and something that a lot of times we don't think about is only 28% of high school seniors qualify for the military service. So, whenever you come out of when you go into the military, you have to pass physical screenings, mental screenings, and it's very stringent in order to be able to get into the military. Studies show that they're productive and have higher retention rates. And that goes back to what Taylor had just said, reading off all of the skills that veterans have. And consistently, they have lower unemployment rates as well. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get into our vision and our mission. So like I said, VETS operates off of the 4 Ps. We prepare service members through the Transition Assistance Program, which we're going to talk about that a little bit more. Several partners here are involved with that are on this call right now. We're very, very appreciative of that. We provide with employment resources and expertise. I'm sorry, my kids are also quarantined. So if you hear things in the background, that's what it is. Protect, which is through USERRA, which Taylor is going to cover a little bit, and then promote through employment opportunities, which covers our leavers across the state that are in the Kentucky Career Centers. Okay, the Transition Assistance Program. Who here has heard of TAP? We have it here on Fort Campbell, Fort Knox, and the Department of Labor. We have the Department of Labor Employment Workshop. So that's our portion of it. DOD has a portion, the Small Business Administration has a portion that they operate as well. Currently, a few initiatives that we have going on is called the Employment Navigator Partnership Pilot. So what that does is it has positioned, and currently it's a pilot program. So we have several installations. We do not have it in Kentucky right now. The Employment Navigators provide a warm handoff through the TAP sites. So for instance, you have a service member who wants to come from Washington State to Kentucky. That Employment Navigator is going to be able to get them to Kentucky and get them the resources. That also works from an employer standpoint. So for instance, if we have a larger employer, let's use Ford for an example, that is needing several employees that have the skill sets can be from all over the country, that Employment Navigator can make those referrals to us so we can get more service members in those positions. We also have the Transition Employment Assistance for Military Spouses, which is a program that is hosted virtually for military spouses. So that's new, and that is in the pilot phase right now as well. All of our programs are free. So like I said, if you all need to know more about these programs, please reach out. We're more than happy to provide more on them. And with that, we're going to move to the Protect portion, which Taylor is going to cover real quick.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. As Donetta said, my name is Taylor Seahorn, and I'm the Assistant Director here in Kentucky. One of the big facets of my job is education and compliance with USERRA, which is the Uniformed Services Employment Reemployment Rights Act of 1994. This is the federal law that protects employment rights for veterans, active duty, and most commonly reservist and National Guard members. As you can see on the slide here, our agency investigates over 900 complaints annually, which in the grand scheme of things is actually really low. It's not a common thing to actually have an investigation of USERRA. And 9 times out of 10, if not more, it's simply a misunderstanding. We don't get a lot of bad actors in this area. And that's one of the key things I'd like to just tell everyone. We're not an enforcement agency, we're a compliance agency. We focus on education a lot more than we do any kind of determinations. So with that said, just to cover it real quick, veterans preference is federal only, but this is the preference that qualified veterans have in becoming federal employees. And as you can see, we investigate about 900 of those complaints each year as well. Slide, please. So basically, there's 2 parts of USERRA: discrimination and reemployment. Discrimination covers the big stuff, basically saying you cannot take an adverse employment action against an employee based on their past, present, or future military service. One thing to remember as an employer is that this does include entry into the military as well. People who've been in know that when you're attempting to enlist in the military, you have appointments, you have medical exams, things like that. And USARA does protect employees to go out and perform those actions without having negative impacts in their civilian employment. USARA, of course, also covers retaliation for trying to exercise a right under USARA or assisting in the USARA investigation. And then the one that most people are very familiar with is reemployment. If a member of the National Guard or Reserves has to leave their civilian employment to deploy, to go to training, to go to school, they are entitled to reemployment upon their return. One little thing a lot of people don't realize is this also covers active duty enlistments. So if an employee leaves for a 3-year active duty tour, or even 4 years, they can be entitled to USARA protections upon their return and become reemployed at their pre-service employment. Just so everybody's kind of aware, there are some eligibility requirements for that reemployment. So the employer has to be told in advance that the employee is leaving to perform military duty. That employee has to timely return under the requirements of USARA. Basically, if it's military duty under 30 days, that employee is going to need to return on their next regularly scheduled shift. 30 to 180 days, they have up to 14 days to return to work once they come off orders. And then anything over 181 days, they have a full 90 days to come back and request reemployment. This is very uncommon, but they can't have a disqualifying discharge, so think dishonorable discharge. And then they don't have over 5 cumulative years of absent time from their employer that's not exempted specifically under USARA. Most deployments, global war and terror related activities are exempt, but that's one of those things we have to look at on a case-by-case basis. Slide, please. Now, I just wanted to cover a few things we encounter, misconceptions, questions that we get specifically from employers. So USARA doesn't have any minimum number of employees to apply to your company. There are labor laws out there, of course, that you have to have 50 employees before it applies to you, but USARA applies to all employers. This is an important one, and when we talk to members of the military, we kind of harp on this as well. USARA doesn't protect you from by being a bad employee. All it's doing is ensuring that you are not treated differently based on your membership in the United States military. So any disciplinary process that the company or employer has, as long as it is equitably carried out, as in, you're being treated the same as every other employee, regardless of their military service, that's fine. Another issue we run into a lot with employers is they want some kind of documentation before they agree to let an employee leave to perform military duty. USARA specifically states that the employee does not need to provide any documentation until their military service obligation is not over 30 days and they've returned. So a member of the National Guard going on a weekend drill isn't required under law to provide a memo from their unit or anything like that. However, our next bullet on that one, USARA doesn't prohibit an employer from contacting an employee's military command. We have run into situations before where employers are worried that they have an employee either gaming the system, or they're concerned with the frequency of 1-2 day military obligations. And all we do is we tell that employer that they should contact the unit, because you can express your concerns about the validity of those orders and the frequency, because USARA does cover voluntary military duty, but if that is affecting the service member civilian employment, as the employer, you can talk to the command and see if you can mitigate some of that. Now, if your company offers additional benefits, this is most common in either like paid military leave or pay differential, you can require additional things for that specific benefit. You can't require, like I said, written orders or a memo from their command before they go for the basic USERRA protections. But if your company is offering that pay differential or paid military leave, you can require it for those additional benefits. The most important thing I want to get out there today is that here at VETS, like, we offer what we call technical assistance. This isn't just for members of the military, this is for employers as well. It's always easier to talk about concerns before they become a complaint. So if there's ever any questions about a company policy or a specific instance with an employee that maybe doesn't sound right, or you just need more education, we are here to answer those questions. Like Donetta said, we're both here in Kentucky. We're local, we answer our phone. You know, you send me an email, you're probably getting a response within 24 hours. You leave me a voicemail, same thing. So that said, that's our USERRA coverage. I'm gonna turn it back to Donetta.
Thanks, Taylor. I appreciate it. Like Taylor said, we really like to be proactive rather than reactive when it comes to USERRA. If you have human resource departments, we're more than happy to provide a briefing to them. Again, just general questions. They don't go anywhere. We'd rather provide technical assistance than look into a complaint. So if at any time you have any question, please reach out to us. We also have ESGR that serves as a mediator who you can reach out to as well. Okay. Like I had said before, our Promote program, we have regional veterans employment coordinators across the country. So a lot of times we have an email box that employers will email and say, hey, I'm looking for 10 veterans in Paducah. And we then partner with our Jobs for Veterans state grant, which Jason Hutchinson and Jad Davis head up in Kentucky, and disseminate that down so it can get into the right hands. So we also have an employer's guide to hiring veterans that our agency has done. And that resource is going to be at the last page. We also have leavers across the state that work with our business service teams to provide employers with the resources that are available, such as the work opportunity tax credit, federal bonding, any tax incentive or program that is going to benefit an employer for hiring a veteran. Again, these are some of the resources that you can reach out to. Here's our DOL Vets Employer Guide. We partner with Hiring Our Heroes. And one of our most valuable partners is the State Workforce Agency, which houses the Jobs for Veterans State Grant. This is extremely busy, and there is a reason it's extremely busy. Part of our job within Veterans Employment and Training Service is to network. If a veteran or an employer reaches out to us, it is our job to know what networks are out there for them and how to connect them to those resources. So if you're a resource that provides assistance to veterans and we don't know about you, we would love to know about that too. So we can provide those resources and get veterans to the right place that they need to go. Apprenticeship. Are there any employers on here that currently participate in apprenticeship? And if there are not, we can happily get you connected. I'm sure you know who Michelle DeJean is and the amazing team that she has. There's two different types of apprenticeships. Kentucky, we have our own state apprenticeship. U.S. Department of Labor, they are all U.S. Department of Labor approved, but U.S. Department of Labor does not manage the apprenticeship program. Michelle DeJean and her team through the Office of Employment and Apprenticeship Services do that. Again, they're an amazing partner. They will pretty much do all the paperwork for you if you're interested in becoming a licensed apprenticeship through the state. And it took me a long time to figure this out when I moved into workforce. Apprenticeship is just not for skilled labor. You would be amazed at some of the apprenticeships that Michelle and them have licensed. Taylor, you remember a few? Pretty sure we have some in the bourbon industry. I don't know if Michelle's on here, feel free to hop in, but you would be amazed at what can be an apprenticeship program.
Last time I saw a couple that stuck out to me was like elevator maintenance, of course, all the skilled trades, but even early childhood education. It's if you can learn through on-the-job training and a education component, it can be an apprenticeship. HR, Michelle told me last time we met that they've been getting a lot of HR apprenticeships going. So it's only bound by what you can think of.
Absolutely. Right. So another really neat initiative that we have going on right now, and I cannot take credit for this one. There are a lot of people who put a lot of effort into getting this program in the state, is the Hilton Honors Program. And I'm going to let Jason, since he was the champion for this, talk about a little bit what it does and how you can become involved with it.
All right, thanks, Donetta. So the Hilton Honors Military Program, we've had it in Kentucky for a couple years now. There's currently 31 states participating in it. And basically what it is a partnership with Hilton and the National Association of State Workforce Agencies. So it basically supplies Hilton Honor points for travel, for veterans, transitioning service members, spouses, and there's a few other eligible populations that are sometimes able to get them, such as postal workers, but typically it is for veterans and transitioning service members. And it's for job searches, training for a new job, or house hunting. It does not cover anything that's not employment related, such as vacations. And they are eligible to receive up to 100,000 points total, and that's a lifetime. But that roughly equals out to about 3 to 4 nights in a Hilton brand hotel, depending on where it is you're staying, which brand it is. So this basically helps our veteran population, transitioning service members, to get from one area to another. And each state has their own eligibility requirements. For Kentucky, we have ours, and Virginia has a different set. So if we have somebody that's going to transition out of, say, Norfolk, Virginia, coming to Kentucky, they wouldn't necessarily utilize Virginia's. They'd get a hold of us. And myself, Jad Davis, who Donetta had said earlier, kind of helps oversight the program. We'd go through, make sure that the person's eligible, and get their points to them. They can typically get their points in about 3 days from start to finish, so it's pretty quick. If they have a spouse or significant other that also has a Hilton Honors program, they can join in. So, realistically, a family of, 2 people, kids, they could get up to 200,000 points, but it'd be 100,000 points each individually. So if you have any questions on that, please feel free to reach out. I'm going to put my name and Jad Davis's name and emails in the chat box. And we're really excited about it. Sometimes, I'll say this as a side note, sometimes our field staff, which work in the Kentucky Career Centers, will sometimes get it before I do, just from a warm handoff from their counterpart in another state. But then it also gets shot up to me. And ultimately, at the end of the day, myself and Jad Davis review them and ensure that the person is in fact eligible. Then we get it over to NASWA and then to Hilton. But big shout out to my folks in the Kentucky Career Centers for doing such a good job. We're all veterans. We've all been there at some point or another. We've all transitioned, and sometimes traveling across the country is not the easiest thing to do. Coming out as an E4, E5, E6, families may not always have the money. So Hilton Honors, awesome program. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. And there are only a total of 31 states that currently participate in this. And I'm going to kind of get my plug in right here. Tennessee is not one of them. So if you need some leverage on doing an interview in Kentucky versus Tennessee, feel free to use this as some leverage on, we can provide them Hilton points to get them here they do not have to pay for a hotel room to come do an interview. So this is definitely something we can leverage and champion. Okay. We also partner with the DoD SkillBridge program, and I know Dallas Kratzer has done a ton of work. You all may have seen recently in the news that we have started a SkillBridge for police officers, which has been very successful, and Dallas has kind of been the pioneer for that as well. So this is, it offers apprenticeships, licensing, certification, on-the-job training and internships, and this is managed through the Department of Defense, but it is one of our valuable partnerships that we have within our agency. Okay, so we've provided some resources on here if you all want to know any more about our agency. We have the veteran-specific website, the employer's guide to hiring veterans that we talked about, Career One Stop, which is where if you have anybody that wants to locate a Kentucky Career Center, or if you're doing a warm handoff across the country, this is where you're going to find that to be able to find your point of contact to get them to. We hope they're moving in and people are looking at it on where to send them in Kentucky, but in the instance that they want to go somewhere else, this is where you would find that resource at. Okay, with that, Taylor, are there any questions in the chat? Or does anybody have any questions while we're on here that we can answer, or anything else you'd like to talk about within the veteran arena? We're more than happy to entertain that as well.
Yeah, Donetta, you do have one question in the chat right now.
Okay.
From Steve. I know that you said some veterans do not wish to discuss, but we have obligations to track as part of OFCCP. Do you have any suggestions for encouraging disclosure?
Okay, so we are actually a partner with the OFCCP. As far as working, Steve, are you talking about working with federal, are you a federal contractor?
Federal contractor, and we're trying to make sure that we get, both for new applicants, but also our incumbents. So recently became federal contractor and trying to get our incumbents to disclose. And, the numbers out there suggest about 7% of the population is probably a veteran status. But when we look at our numbers, it's extremely low. And we think it's likely because of lack of willingness to disclose.
Okay. What are you doing right now to encourage them to disclose that information? And is there a reason you think they may not be disclosing?
It's just low response rate. And it's one of those things where we've had campaigns to encourage people to self-disclose as part of the process. And we now have it as a part of a mandatory disclosure part of the candidate. So we're collecting it there. It's really getting the incumbents to be able to do it. I just didn't know if you had any good suggestions on that.
I would encourage you, we do partner with OFCCP. They are part of USDOL. I can reach out to my counterpart there and try to get some technical assistance if you'd be interested in that, or also reach out to my counterpart to see if they would have suggestions.
I guess really just kind of understanding why the hesitation, because if we understood more of the hesitation, maybe that would change our communication approach. So it's really kind of getting, the story behind the story so we know how to attack it.
From a federal contractor standpoint, I'm surprised that that's a concern because, the federal contractor arena has so many veterans, you would think be more willing to disclose in that environment. So that's interesting. Now I'd like to do more research on it to see if I can find out as well.
Okay, happy to any learnings you can share.
Thank
Can I
you.
jump in here on this a little bit too?
Go for it, Dallas.
Right. So one of the big challenges that I've found with veterans disclosing is they're not sure they're a veteran. So there's been a lot of discussion in this arena that what is a veteran, and a lot of guardsmen or reservists don't see themselves as veterans because they didn't have that long active duty stint. This is also a similar problem with the female population, that some of them don't feel like veterans, so they don't self-disclose. And it's more of helping them to remember that there are many things that define what a veteran is. So Jason, I see you jumped in there too.
I did. So just in our daily operations with JVSG, we see this quite often. And one thing we've done to kind of navigate the waters to mitigate any confusion is instead of asking, are you a veteran? We ask, have you served? And that has prompted a lot of people to say, oh yeah, I did serve, but I wasn't a combat veteran, so I didn't think I was, or I was only a nurse in Korea, so I didn't, I'm not a veteran. But just asking that question, have you served versus are you a veteran, can sometimes, kind of mitigate that. Thanks, Dallas.
Absolutely. And that, like Dallas said, a lot of people sometimes don't know. If you don't have that Title 10 DD 214, it can sometimes be confusing. And I think this is me saying, I think, federal programs can make it confusing too, because just in our agency, we have 3 different definitions of what a veteran is. So I get where that confusion is 100%. So thanks for those comments, Dallas and Jason. April's got her hand up.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for this presentation. One thing that you may have already addressed, I jumped on just about 5 minutes late, but what about employers writing veteran or military experience equivalencies into their job description? Could you address that a little bit? You know what I'm
Just
saying, as far as what required experience in education? Am I cutting out?
yeah, you're cutting out a little
Can you hear me?
bit. It could be my rural internet too. I'm not sure, but
So my question is about employers writing veteran experience into their job requirements.
so we see the challenge from the other way around. If you have a very veteran-friendly employer, they're going to be really good at writing those descriptions. But the challenge that we see is veterans that come into the Kentucky Career Centers. And honestly, I had this issue when I transitioned out. We're so used to thinking technically and exactly what we do and what we work with. A lot of times it's hard for us to transition that into a civilian skill set. So we do have a couple of resources that we use. Google just came out with a really neat tool that can translate MOSs into civilian skills. ONET has one, which is, you may or may not like ONET, but we have a really neat program coming out. The Department of Labor awarded a challenge grant through Eightfold. And that's a program that's going to be coming out that does placement matching based on your skills and your MOSs. It's in the pilot phase right now. We're really excited about that. It should be going into place early next year. So hopefully that will help mitigate that a little. Dallas, I see your hands up as well.
Yeah, just to approach that subject a little bit more. In higher ed, we have the same challenge, all right? But all service members, except for the Air Force, because the Air Force is weird. I'm an Air Force guy, I can say that. They all have a joint service transcript, and that joint service transcript is a history of their military workplace learning and experiences. So that has been changed to be more of a civilianized version of job descriptions, just like ONET. So maybe we need to encourage our employers to ask folks, hey, could you give us a copy of your joint service transcript or JST? I think that could really go with what you're talking about, April. Just something simple like that.
Absolutely. Again, the Kentucky Career Centers, they can help. There are staff that are in place that can help translate those skills as well. So feel free to provide that as a resource too. Okay. Any other questions? I see that our friends from the VHA are on here. Do you all want to say anything? Again, the veteran community is extremely small. We all partner together. We all have the same customers. So if there's any other resources on here that want to throw something in that can benefit the population that we serve, feel free, right? Because again, we are more than happy to share what resources and tools that we have.
Sure. I'm joining. This is Charles Almeida. I work in the voc rehab program here in the Louisville, Kentucky area. I know one of the initiatives that we're pushing here locally is we recently had Amazon reach out to us regarding identifying veteran populations within their work group. And so what we did is coordinated with them to host a veteran event. And so VHA was on site along with some VBA reps to help promote veteran services, and it also assisted Amazon in identifying some of their veteran staff. One of the neat things they did is provided veteran pins to some of their employees to display while they're at work. So I know for the individual who was asking about identifying veterans, something along those lines where you have a veteran appreciation or service member appreciation event. If you're close enough to a VA medical center, we have outreach coordinators within all the medical centers that would work with businesses to help identify veterans and promote services available within the VA, VBA. So that's something to put out there.
Thank you, Charles.
Yeah.
All right, anybody else? Again, just to reiterate, one of the amazing things about being able to work within the veteran community is it takes a village to make this community work. And we have an amazing village of people that have the heart to serve veterans. So it is amazing to get to work in this arena and get to see the amazing things that a lot of the partners on here today in this meeting do. So we're super grateful for that opportunity. So anything else before I give it back to Sarah?
Okay, you know me, I'm always going to say something. So you talked about M2LE and the great success we had there. We've now expanded this into EMTs. Hopkinsville was our first fire department to take on a SkillBridge applicant as an EMT, and they weren't a combat medic. So any service member could get into that. But more importantly, Atlas Air just brought on an Air Force person out of Minot to be an aircraft mechanic. So SkillBridge is growing. And
Nice.
Yep. Okay.
That's great. Thanks, Dallas. Anybody else before we get off of here today? All right, Sarah, I don't hear anybody. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay, I just want to let everybody know that our next Veterans and Transitioning Service Members Subcommittee meeting is July 13th at 11 o'clock. If anybody would like to join us, the meeting information is on our KWIB website, which is kwib.ky.gov. And if you go under schedule of meetings, you'll find that information there. The Zoom link is available, and we appreciate all the information that you gave us today. And thank you all for being here. You all have a great day.